I in the picture? Thank you.
Okay, we should be live streaming now.
Okay, thank you. And I've got 7:01, so I will call this meeting to order. As far as mayor's remarks, I really don't have many. Sorry I missed the last council meeting, but in 36 years of marriage, that's the first time Helen and I have ever taken 2 weeks off together in a row. So, and it went well, so we might do it again sometime, so that's all right. But for our land acknowledgement, we would like to acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the neutral peoples. Can I get a mover and a seconder for confirmation of the agenda, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor and Councillor Chartrand that the agenda for the regular meeting of council dated September 6th of 2022 be adopted as circulated, with the addition of item 8.5, the report from the CAO 22-46, the Seaforth Lawn Bowling Club house roof replacement. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest from any member of council this evening? Seeing none. Minutes of the previous meeting. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the motion, please? Moved by Councillor McClellan, second by Councillor On, that the council of the municipality of Huron East approve the following council meeting minutes, and that's the regular meeting of August 9th of 2022. Are there any comments or questions about the minutes? All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Public meetings, hearings, and delegations. The first one, public meeting zoning bylaw amendment. And can I get a mover and a seconder to go into the public meeting? Moved by Councillor Steffler, second by Councillor Morrison, that the council of the municipality of Huron East adjourn the regular meeting of council at 7:03 p.m. to go into a public meeting to discuss the following. A zoning bylaw amendment application, lands legally known as blocks 34, 35, and 44, Plan 596 Brussels Ward, and also the Baker Planning Group. Comments or questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the agenda of the public meeting? Moved by Councillor Morrison, second by the Deputy Mayor, that the agenda for the public meeting for zoning bylaw amendments be adopted as circulated. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. And I will turn this over to, I'm not sure if it's the CAO or who at this point. Oh, Jessica, thank you.
Okay, so the following provisions are contained in Ontario Regulation 54506, Section 5115, that if a person or public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the council of the municipality of Huron East to the local planning appeal tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of Huron East before the bylaws are passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the municipality of Huron East to the local planning appeal tribunal. And two, if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the municipality of Huron East before the bylaws are passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal to the tribunal unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So we have a zoning application that was received from Baker Planning Group, which is affecting the lands legally known as blocks 34, 35, and 44, Plan 596 in the Brussels Ward. The purpose of the zoning amendment is to amend the zoning on the property from R1, which is residential low density, to R3-3, residential high density special zone, to allow for the development of 24 street townhouses consisting of 4 townhouse blocks with 6 dwelling units on each block. A notice of the public meeting has been circulated to all government agencies and adjoining property owners and was provided for by the legislation, and no comments have been received. So I can now call on our planner, Jen Burns, to go over the application.
Thank
Welcome,
you, Jessica. and good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all tonight. So as mentioned, we are taking a look at zoning bylaw amendment application Z06 of 2022 in the Brussels ward, and I'll just share my screen here. So this is the property that we are talking about, and I think most will be quite familiar with it. So as Jessica mentioned, the purpose of this application is to rezone the subject lands so that the portion of property in the center of the property outlined in orange from R1, so that's our residential low density, to R3-3, which is our residential high density special zone, to allow for some higher density development within Brussels. The R3-3 special zone provisions will permit a lot depth of 30 meters, whereas a minimum of 38 is currently required within the zoning bylaw. It will allow for an exterior side yard of 5 meters where a minimum of 6 is required, and will permit a lot coverage of 50%, whereas the maximum lot coverage is 40%. Since the writing of this report and up to this time right now, we have not received any concerns from staff or members of the public or any agencies. I did receive one call from a neighbor that was just looking for some clarification on the exact portion of property that was being rezoned, and once she learned where that location was, she was very pleased with the proposal and had no concerns. So nice to hear some positive feedback from one of the neighbors on the proposal and on the application. Staff have reviewed the proposal and the planning justification report prepared by Caroline Baker, who's on the call this evening as well, and have reviewed against our relevant policies. There are no outstanding concerns from a staff perspective, and this application is recommended to be approved. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll also just put up the proposal here, and I know that Caroline is on the line in the case that there's some questions that I'm unable to answer. And with that, I will turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Okay. I just, yeah, good. Thank you. Are there any questions of members of council at this time? Okay, I don't see any questions, Caroline. I think council is quite aware of the property and what we're hoping to accomplish. Is there any comments that you would like to add at this point, or were you just wanting to answer questions?
Certainly appreciate Ms. Burns' thorough presentation. Certainly here to answer any questions, and also just to add that as part of the application, I had prepared a planning justification report and would concur with Ms. Burns' conclusion that the zone change is appropriate and represents good land use planning. And in my opinion, the appropriate studies from servicing and archaeological have been completed, but certainly any detailed questions, happy to answer.
Okay. So one final kick at it. Any questions from, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little confused on this one. I thought we were going to make the proposal for a zoning change and then put out RFP for ideas, and I don't know how it has evolved that Ms. Baker's group is doing this for us. I'm confused on that one. And then going forward, what will the process be now that we have this plan that already has buildings designed, and maybe a builder would have his own idea when he bought one of these 4 lots from us. I'm not sure I know the process now.
Okay, I'm going to try and take a, the CAO would like to respond, so I'll let Brad go.
Yeah, no, but I think conversation with council of the property was the center blocks we were going to rezone, because right now there are one under the current plan of subdivision that's designated. So our intent was to zone them for multi-residential, and then then we can, sell the individual blocks. So we'll, the new our plan will create those 4 blocks and we'll sell them to individual developers to create, certainly whatever they want, but it certainly gives it, the R3 gives them that option to go up to, 6 townhomes. And we've designed the subdivision from a servicing perspective to make sure that that's accommodatable in terms of services. So kind of have to do the servicing aspect of it in advance. You kind of can't just leave it to sort of willy-nilly once you're putting the services in. So that's why we're kind of doing it in this order. And Caroline's always been retained as a planner to support us in terms of developing this subdivision and the subsequent phases of it as well.
And Ms. Baker, if you wanted to add anything.
Perfect, thank you. I was just going to add that the plan we submitted with the building envelopes are just in fact that. They're building envelopes to confirm potential zoning compliance for setbacks, lot coverage. Certainly any builder could come in, they could do something similar. They could do fewer units. So they could do, for example, 4 attached straight townhouses versus 6. I would note that the building envelopes shown on the plan as submitted are in keeping with similar townhouses you've seen in your community over the past few years in terms of setbacks, coverage, and height and square footage.
Go ahead, Bob.
We have a follow-up, Mr. Mayor, please. Then I guess my next question is, I'm a little disgruntled on this one. When we pay tens of thousands of dollars to the county every year for services, planning and roads, et cetera, I don't understand why we would use and nothing against Ms. Baker's work, it's excellent. But why are we paying a private sector planner to do this when we have the planning department of Huron County working for us with Jen and Ms. Van Amersfoort and Director Weber? Why do we need to go to a private sector at the extra cost to the taxpayer? I'm not sure I understand this at all. So
Okay,
if I can get an answer, please.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I could, but I'll let the CAO take a kick at it.
Yeah. I think it's that differentiation, Deputy Mayor, in terms of making sure that our planners from the county perspective remain sort of the separate body that regulates our zoning bylaw. And so having them sort of doing both sides of the application essentially creates a bit of a conflict. So being open and transparent for the best interest of the taxpayers, for the best interest of the public, and for the best interest of the municipality, it's in our best interest to have an independent planner prepare and submit our application, and then have it reviewed independently by what I always kind of call the county planning department is kind of the regulator of the rules. And in this case, Ms. Baker is basically submitting the application on behalf of the municipality as a client. So that's the rationale and the logic for it, just to keep the lines clear, make sure that we're open and transparent, and make sure that the county planning staff don't get into a position where they're in conflict. Would you agree, Ms. Burns?
Absolutely, yes. So yeah, as the CEO explained, ensuring that there's, because the municipality is both the applicant and the approval authority on this type of application, to ensure that the public interest is upheld, and as Brad mentioned, making sure that those roles are very clear and transparent. It's always recommended that when the township is taking on their own development project of this scale, that they do have their own representative, just to ensure that transparency, and that as the county, but also the township planner, not playing both sides of the coin there. So yes, I would agree with everything that's been said so far.
You good with that, Bob?
No, I'm not good with it, but that's what, the way it's going to go. That's the way it's going to go, I guess. I don't see any need for Ms. Baker to be operating on this part for us. I think we could have done all this ourselves and saved the money. But Okay,
So it's, all right, and instead of just reverberating the points that have already been made, I can say that because I sit as a third party to other municipalities on behalf of the county to review the processes they go through, this is not an uncommon process for other municipalities to do the same thing. That when they're doing a development, they also bring in their own planner, and then the county reviews that work to make sure that the municipality was given good information, basically, and meets all the rules.
thank you.
All right. Councillor Steffler.
Yeah, I think this rezoning application only makes sense. It's no different than where I'm living right now up here on Silver Creek Road. I think it's great for the town of Brussels.
Absolutely. And there was certainly lots of requests from members of the public. I remember 4 years ago wanting some more density and hopefully some lower cost housing for younger families to be able to afford and move into the area. So this could be a great thing. My printout of motions doesn't tell me where I go from here. Sorry.
After this, if there's no other comments from the applicants or public or counselors, then it's pretty much adjournment. The final recommendation will be held in our regular council session, and same with the approval bylaw will be held later tonight in council.
Jessica, are you aware of any members of the public that have joined the meeting that wish to discuss?
No, I'm not aware of anybody that's joined from the public.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a mover and a seconder then to close the public session? Moved by Councillor Steffler, second by Councillor On, that the public meeting for the zoning bylaw amendments be closed at 7:17 p.m. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to number 7, accounts payable. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the accounts at this time? Councillor Chartrand and Councillor Morrison, that the accounts payable in the amount of $2,211,515.30 be approved for payment. Are there any questions from members of council to either the CAO, the treasurer, or any department heads that are on for questions about the accounts at this time? Councillor McClellan.
It's not about the account itself, but it's about one of the contractors. So I can wait till after this passes and ask the question about it. Basically, it revolves around, there's a contractor on there that I've been told many times he gets his kids to run the lawnmower. And I just want to know if he's covered under workman's compensation or not, or if a certificate's asked for. Because if that kid happens to get hurt cutting grass on our property, who's liable?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. Since we're not in a closed session and we would have to name somebody, I think it's very appropriate if you wanted to contact the CAO afterwards, pass that information on and let him take a look at it. And then if there's anything that we should be concerned about, he certainly should bring the information back to council. But I just don't want to mention names during a public meeting.
Yep, that's more than fair. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no questions about any of the accounts other than that, then all those in favor of paying the bills. Motion carries. Thank you. Reports and recommendations of municipal officers. So 8.1 CLK 22-16 part lock control exemption 787 Sports Drive, Brussels. Henry Croker. I'm not sure.
I wrote the report, but Jen Burns might have more background. She was more involved with the actual application, but it's just a semi that's going to be split onto 2 properties. So they would have 1 dwelling per lot. And they've gone through the services and they've created an easement as requested on the properties. And they are on municipal water and sewer services. And yeah, so and then the units are going to be separated by a firewall as well.
I I can't remember the street, but I believe we did this on a property in Egmontville sometime in the last year. Did the exact same thing, split a duplex right down the center of the house. So this is not a new strategy by any means. Any questions of council this time? Seeing none, then can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Deal, second by Councillor On, that the council of the municipality of Huron East consider the bylaw to provide exemption from part lot control for 787 Sports Drive in Brussels, municipality of Huron East. Am I reading the right one here? Yeah, I think so. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. 8.2, appointment of municipal investigators.
So this is just another follow-up piece, kind of goes hand in hand with the animal control officer. The previous animal control officer was also our livestock evaluator, which is the municipal investigators is now kind of the new term that they're using for livestock evaluator from OMAFRA. So we did come up in an instance this past month where we did have a livestock claim in which the municipality is responsible for appointing a municipal investigator within 72 hours of that claim to submit them. So I did find two people that are already trained that are used across all of our neighboring municipalities. And they have agreed to be appointed as our municipal investigators in case this comes up again. So this is the first time we've had one, I believe, since Bob Trick has passed away.
I'll do the motion first. I only had one question that may not be relevant, but can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor McClellan, that the council of the municipality of Huron East consider a bylaw appointing Randy Scott and Sarah Shapton as municipal investigators for the municipality of Huron East. The only question I had no problem with the hourly rate. I don't even have any problem with the actual payment for the mileage of what it's set at. My only question is, and this is because of concerns of CRA and how it can affect people, is this the actual rate that CRA recommends right now?
That I'm not sure of. I went on the rate that they are being paid from the other municipalities. That is something we can look into though, but that is the rate that all the other clerks are paying them at this point.
Okay, I don't have any problem with the rate. I just, I would not want somebody to be blindsided by CRA down the road, because my understanding is CRA has a recommended rate of what mileage should be paid. If you paid less than that, people actually have to pay income tax on it, even though they're not getting the proper rate. If you overpay, they have to pay income tax on it. But if you pay the recommended rate from CRA, they don't pay income tax on it. So it may be beneficial to them just to make sure that their rate is what CRA is recommending. Mr. CAO, you had a comment?
I can just confirm that 61 cents is the rate defined by CRA for 2022.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that. Any other comments or questions of council? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Jessica, please. This is a complete cost recovery from the province, isn't it?
So if the claim is approved, then yes, it's all the province or OMAFRA pays us, we pay back the farmer. It all gets recovered, yes.
Wages, mileage, livestock, etc.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of council? All those in favor of the motion? And motion carries. Thank you. Number 8.3, can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Morrison, second by Councillor On, that the council of the municipality of Huron East considered the animal control and noise bylaws for approval at the September 20th, 2022 council meeting. Any questions about either of those bylaws at this time? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The animal one, the fines for when dogs aren't tagged or running loose, et cetera, it's $125 for the first one. Then I wondered if it should increase if the same person has multiple offenses to give them a better tune-up. The first offense is 125, the second one 250, the third one 500, and then the fourth one we shoot them or something like that, just to straighten them up. You know what I mean?
I understand the point that you're making. Yes, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I will ask the CAO if that is considered appropriate to do something along that line.
Certainly I or Jess can speak to it. And I know Jess has had lots of discussions with our bylaw enforcement officer in terms of the animal control bylaw as well as the noise bylaw. I have seen that, Deputy Mayor, to be honest, where there's an incremental fine. I guess I would probably defer the decision to both Jess as well as our bylaw enforcement officer in terms of how the short-term wording gets described to enforce that. But it's certainly not a bad idea in terms of how it goes forward. But it is, I have seen it in, not necessarily an animal control bylaw, but in other enforcement bylaws where, you know, first offense, second offense, it gets to an incremental crime or incremental fine.
If I can ask the clerk, Jessica, when I read this, I can't remember if the page that listed the actual fines, was it part in the bylaw or was it like one of the addendums at the end? Because if it's one of the addendums, my understanding is we can make changes to that without having to get rid of the original bylaw and redo it again. Is that correct?
The schedule right now is part of the actual bylaw. So it is Schedule B, I believe, as part of the actual bylaw, and these fees were the same fees that were in the original animal control bylaw as well. So they can be amendable with this amendment, like we can change them at this point. Anything changed though, we'll have to go back to get approval from the justice if we're changing a fee in the actual short form wording.
Okay, I guess my comment is I think it's fair that we look into what the deputy mayor brought up, but I didn't want to hold off on just getting something in place to get the ball rolling. How big a deal is it for us to do those changes after the fact, if in fact council likes the suggestions that come back? Okay. Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think since this point in time, it's a draft bylaw. We do want to permit the opportunity for the public to speak to it as well. Okay. So comments received from council today can be incorporated into the final version, which would be approved at the September 20th meeting.
Okay, all right, that's good then. So how will the public be made aware of in time to get their comments back in for September 20th?
Very similar to how we've been doing the last bylaws, we're putting them on our engagement platform. And with that, we're also doing some social media blasts and website updating so that everybody knows that they're coming forward, that there's time for comments and they're still in draft form. The other bylaw, we have not received any comments from the last one, but we do try and push it out to the public as much as we can to let them know that these are in draft form and to offer their comments to us.
Okay, thank you. I guess since the motion was to basically go ahead with the draft kind of thing at this point, does council need to do anything other than the request that's already been made to look at the other, or do we need to do a motion requesting that we make a change? How do we go about that?
No, because these are still draft, you can still just offer your comments and I can incorporate those in time for the September 20th. So it wouldn't have to be a follow-up motion or anything like that.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Jessica, if she could please. Jessica, when you were talking to your other cohorts about the animal bylaw, did you get any feedback as to what they do with sort of the other nuisance animals like raccoons and stuff? How do they get that? I know I've brought this up before, and it was kind of shot down. I just think we're not doing our residents a favor if we at least don't give them some sort of contact information if they are bothered by one. I know Bob Trick did a great job before looking after that. He's no longer doing that. But I don't like the feeling of just leaving people hanging, dealing with a raccoon up a tree or something like that. I didn't know if you had any feedback or if that was even discussed.
It wasn't really, a lot of the bylaws do focus around canine. I know, and I think that's because it is a problem and there's not the specialties that are willing to do it as easy as what Bob did. And that's kind of where we have that trouble as well. I think Brad has more that he can offer on that.
Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, for Jessica's sake, I spent probably the last year kind of working with the animal control group or animal enforcement group, trying to come to some solution. And we all agreed that, the enforcement side of it would focus on canines or dogs, and kind of move away from, the raccoons, the rats, the wild kind of attacking geese kind of scenarios, and simply defer them to animal control, or not animal control, but to like a pest control company. I understand, Counselor, in terms of, giving that as a response to someone maybe isn't that helpful, but I suppose we could probably, list some pest control companies that are in the general area of Huron County. We certainly obviously don't want to recommend anybody, just from a standpoint of liability and all that, but I don't see a reason why we can't list the various pest control companies that are in our area that people can contact.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like that idea. I know you mentioned that about liability before, and I understand that part of it. I just feel somewhere along the line we need to offer some names or some ideas of where people can go, rather than just saying, sorry, that's not my department, and click. So I would certainly go along with that if we could develop a list or something like that. And yes, I agree, we don't need to recommend one person or one company over another, but I don't think there'd be any harm in making sure people know that there's people out there, and here's some phone numbers. I don't know how you do that, but I just think we need to be doing that.
Sure.
Okay. Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to, I guess, the clerk. For the noise bylaw regarding enforcement. So I know a lot of the noise bylaw has to do with stuff that's going to happen, I guess, kind of overnight. And obviously, if someone submits a report, that's not going to be looked at for maybe not until at least the next week or whatnot. So what, I guess, as councillors, should we suggest to the public to ensure that the report actually sees an outcome, or is there a process for noise bylaw? I see in the animal control one, it says that the bylaw officer can use the services of the OPP to help with that, but I don't see that in the noise bylaw. So I'm just, what's the enforcement look like with something that's primarily an overnight situation?
It would be the same as the animal control. They can enlist the help of the police. So especially with the after hours, complaints about emergency, things like that. The OPP can regulate the noise bylaw, but they won't be able to do that until we have something in place and approved.
Okay.
Councillor McClellan.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to follow up on that to the clerk. And that's something that I get questioned quite often about. I'm going to pick on Zoe. So Zoe likes to play her music really loud, so she does. And I ask her a number of times to turn it down. She'll turn it down, but then the next day she turns it up again. And so then I put a letter in her mailbox saying, turn your music down, please. And so she turns it down, and the next day she turns it up again. And music is quite loud. How do I handle that? How many more times do I talk to her? Do I send her letters? Do I text her? At some point in time, and just to add on to Councillor Morrison's statement, what if that's 11 o'clock at night and she won't turn her music down? Can I call the police? The not emergency phone number, obviously, but I might need help to get Zoe to turn her music down. And that's all I'm looking for. So.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I think I think the challenge we have right now in terms of a noise bylaw is the only bylaw we've got is the Seaforth bylaw. So for OBP to enforce Zoe to not play her music, it wouldn't necessarily be very applicable and difficult for the police to fine or enforce. So I think the value of creating a municipal wide noise bylaw gives the police that tool that allows them to be able to do some type of enforcement. And yeah, the police might be their first mode of tactic might be a simple warning, turn it down. And if they comply, it's great. They're, obviously if they get multiple calls to that location, they might end up fining that individual and ticketing them on behalf of the municipality. And that's part of the role they provide for us after hours.
And just to follow up then, so that's here in East wide, that's not just say an urban setting or an AG4 setting or agricultural setting, that is here in East wide.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Chartrand.
Yes, I do know in Seaforth it works. I was at a backyard party that had a live band, and after 11 o'clock, 20 after 11, the OPP showed up because a neighbor had called, and simply OPP was very good about it and just said, it's after 11 o'clock. That's your last song, pack it up, and away they went. So it does work. It'll be a much better bylaw when it is across the entire municipality instead of just Huron East or Seaforth, pardon me.
Yeah, the advantage for Councillor Ron is most of her clients don't really care how loud you turn it, so. All right, if there's no other questions about those bylaws, then all those in favor. And motion carries, thank you. 8.4, tax collection policy and procedure. And if I can get a mover and a seconder to start this off. Councillor Morrison and Councillor On, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East approved the policy regarding collection of outstanding property taxes. Comments or questions of members of council? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Stacy, please. How is this different from what we're doing now?
All right, I think it's sort of very similar, but there's nothing in writing to support what we do now. And with it in writing, then we can take this and have a policy to fall back on within our office. And then in addition, we can take this policy and outline some key points on our website so that ratepayers are aware of the steps that we take and the potential for collections and the consequences of not paying your taxes is outlined right there for them. So it's accountability and transparency.
Okay, so just so I'm clear on it then, please. They don't pay their taxes for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then we give them 280 days notice. And then we give them 30 days more notice. So they basically still have 3 years to pay their taxes.
Before they go to tax sale is what you're talking about, because you're talking about the tax sale. Yeah. I think that we've added some things in the policy to hopefully be a little bit more proactive to prevent people from going to tax sale. So there was a section on collection letters and the ability for the tax clerk and or I to go form agreements based on just tax arrears prior to going into tax sales. So we can help people get caught up on their taxes before they go into a tax sale. So maybe that's a little bit new, but that was more a proactive way to try to get people on board to pay their taxes. We don't want to sell people's houses, and we don't want to go to the tax sale. I think we want to try to avoid that as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. That brings another question, if I may, Mr. Mayor, please.
Sure.
Thank you. Do you want all that responsibility yourself, or on who to give one of these payment plans to, or should that be decided by maybe you and the clerk or whatever, just in case there's ramifications? Or would you want all that responsibility yourself?
For the tax sale or for the?
Oh, no, to set up a payment plan.
The payment plans, there's certain guidelines for the payment plans, what it includes. And so for example, the payment plan was set for the tax clerk to be able to set one up for 12 months, and it would include all tax arrears and penalties. So you had to forecast
No, yeah, yes,
calculation.
I followed all that. I just
Okay.
wanted to know if you or the tax clerk were comfortable doing it on your own, or you wanted to do it as a pair or three people, even just in case there's ramifications from the public or from the person that you're setting the agreement up with.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, maybe I could kind of add into this. I mean, certainly the treasurer and myself, as well as the tax clerk, have fairly extensive conversations on any tax sale and any potential payment plan. So there's conversations that have at a staff level. In the end of the day, the treasurer has to, approve and execute those agreements. And so she's not going to do it, without consultation with other staff members, including myself. And there's a,
Thank you.
yeah. So, and then I think the other piece too is that it's all done in I guess compliance and then through advisement from Real Tax, who's our property tax sale process administrators, and the agreement's standard for what they basically use. They talk about standard terminology. I think the nice thing about what Stacy's doing here, what our treasurer is doing here, is basically putting the process into a documentation process where it's open, transparent, and it's available. And you've got a draft extension agreement that's already basically prepared there, and staff can just go through and, work through the various aspects of that agreement for any of those individuals that, we can reach a mutual agreeable method of paying the taxes off. And one of the things I guess I wanted to make sure when we went through the process and in consultation with Stacy, I wanted to make sure that the tax sale process didn't restart. So an individual who's in a tax sale process, simply by entering into an agreement, just defers it for another 3 years, like you said, Bob. I wanted to make sure that the tax sale process just restarted right from where it left off. So a person couldn't, use it as a technique to keep deferring their tax sale off in the future.
Thank
That
you.
helps.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions of council at this time? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion? And motion carries. Thank you. 8.5, the Seaforth Lawn Bowling Club house roof replacement. I'll get a mover and a seconder, and then we'll have the discussion. Moved by Councillor Steffler, second by Councillor Wilby, that the council of the municipality of Huron East authorize staff to proceed with the replacement of the roof on the Seaforth Lawn Bowling Club house, and that the costs for the replacement be drawn from the Seaforth Recreation Reserve. Just one question about that. When we say Seaforth Recreation Reserve, I apologize, but I thought when I read it, it was going to be the Parkland Reserve that we were drawing it from. Am I incorrect on that?
It's the Parkland Reserves basically used for parkland. I didn't quite fit this into that parkland category since the general public can't access it. So I felt best to use the Seaforth Recreation Reserve. Okay.
All right. Thanks for that clarification. All those in favor, questions of council at this time? The only thing, I understand that we were going to try and get whatever was the best bang for the buck, depending on the length of time that the shingles were rated for. I forget what the numbers were. Did they vary from 9,000 to 17,000?
Correct.
I would have thought the labor was the biggest part of putting shingles on, not the cost of the shingles themselves. I guess I was just surprised that the variance was almost doubling the price.
Well, I've got one quote, and maybe I'm a bit skeptical of that one quote that's at the low end, and the other quotes are all at the high end. So I feel a little bit more comfortable at the high end, and I think from a value perspective, the shingle quality will be better. And I don't think that building's going anywhere, and I don't think the Seaforth Lawn Bowling Club's going anywhere. So I think we'll get our 40 years. Well, you never get 40 years, but we'll get our value out of that.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Any other questions from members of council? Councillor Steffler.
I have a
Go ahead,
question.
Joe. You're first. You're not muted.
Hello?
Oh, I think Larry wants to speak as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
Go ahead, Larry. You go first then.
What about pricing steel on that, steel roof on that, bowling building? The reason I
We
suggest
did.
that, the only reason I suggest that is that when you're talking shingles, we all know they wear out pretty quick, but, yeah, it might cost at this point in time, but you're not looking at it in another 20, 25 years to spend another maybe, $25,000 to do it. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councilor McGrath. Yeah, certainly one of the things that we did look into, and we did look at steel roof. Fortunately, the contractors were unwilling to quote it. I think their main issue was because of the style of roof it is. It's a hip roof and fairly small. So trying to do a hip roof in a fairly small area with steel becomes somewhat problematic. And so they didn't seem to have any interest as much as we tried to get quotes for a steel roof.
Is there nobody out there that would quote it? Was it an invite quote or did we contact contractors?
We contacted contractors.
I don't know, I guess I just look at steel on a little garden shed or garage or something. I know what you're saying about a hip roof and stuff, but it's doable. But anyways, I guess if that's the answer, then that's the answer to my question. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Councilor McGrath. Councilor Steffler, did you still have a comment or not?
No, I quite agree with putting the roof on. These are recreation for seniors. You don't see many of them skating and whatnot out of the arena. So if we
Right.
can spend a bit of money on our seniors, we're a pretty poor council.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you for those comments. If there's no other comments from council at this time, it's an open price range at this point for staff to figure out what our best bang for our buck is. All those in favor of the motion? And motion carries. Thank you. Can I get a mover and a seconder to receive the reports of municipal officers? Moved by Councilor McClellan, moved by Councilor Deal, that the Huron East Council received the following reports of municipal officers as presented. Number 1 from the clerk, 2 from the director of finance, the treasurer, and 3 from the CAO. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. We are down to correspondence. I will turn this over to the CAO.
Sure, thanks. We had a request from the Brussels Agricultural Society. They're holding their fall fair September 13th and 14th at the Four Winds Barn, and it's named Twist and Sprout. I almost caught myself. And their opening ceremonies are Tuesday the 13th, commencing at 7 p.m. They're requesting our assistance. They want to block off Elizabeth Street between Orchard Lane and King Street to be closed from 5 p.m. on September 13th until 4 p.m. September 14th to allow them to set up children's activities, including numerous inflatables, a firefighter still and a firefighter's skill station. They require those to be on some solid surfaces, and so that's why they're making the request. They also request assistance with traffic measures on September 14th between 11:15 a.m. to approximately 11:50 a.m. when their students will have a procession from the side of the Royal Legion along Flora at Turnberry Street, proceeding west to Elizabeth, and then turning north and proceeding up past King Street to the Four Winds Barn. So they request those intersections be stopped up. So that's the request, and there's a bylaw there on the agenda for us to stop up and close those roads on a temporary basis for that event.
Okay, so the CAO has already explained basically what the wording of the motion is, and there is a bylaw later on. So I just need a mover and a seconder to accept the request at this point. Moved by Councilor Deal, second by Councilor Wilby, and all those in favor. And motion carries. Thank you. Unfinished business, I see nothing. Municipal, oh, Municipal drains, 11.1. Municipal drain status, and it's just received for information unless council had any questions. Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to either the CAO or to Ken. How often are these reports going to come to council?
I've been discussing with Jessica, and we thought that probably quarterly for maybe some drain maintenance or anything ongoing will come as forth any recommendations needed.
Okay, yeah, no, that'd be great if it was quarterly. It just keeps us up to date on what's going on. So thank you very much, Ken.
Yep.
And it really helps when you get a question from members of the public, especially when you had listed in one of them, or maybe it was even two of them, that this other project had to be finished because that developer or contractor was moving on to that next one. So that really helps when we have that information to pass on to the public. So thank you for that. It looks like I have to do each of these individually. So number 11.2, I need a mover and a seconder for that motion for the drain. Moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by our Deputy Mayor, that the Council of the Municipality of Huron East appoint a drainage engineer under Section 65, Paragraph 1 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990, to develop a new assessment schedule for the main drain of the Watson Drain Works, and that RJ Burnside and Associates Limited be appointed as the drainage engineer. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. 11.3, mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Wilby, second by Councillor Deal, that the Section 78 request for the municipal drain improvement request by Robert Van Ness, part lots 21 to 23 and part lots 26 and 27, concession 1 gray, municipal drain number 5 and Balfour municipal drain be accepted, and that council instruct Headway Engineering to prepare a report 30 days after notification to the conservation authorities. Comments or questions? All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 12, we're down to planning again. Recommendation, re-council zoning bylaw amendment from the Baker Planning Group. So this is what we discussed earlier. Can I get a mover and a seconder for this first one? Moved by Councillor On, second by Councillor Morrison. That whereas the Council of the Municipality of Huron East has held a public meeting pursuant to Section 34, Paragraph 12 of the Planning Act 1990 with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw 69-2022, and whereas no public comments were received on this application, and whereas no agency comments were received on this application, now therefore pursuant to Section 34, Paragraph 18 of the Planning Act 1990, Council concurs with the August 24, 2022 Planning Report and recommends bylaw 69 of 2022 for approval. Comments or questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. We are down to council reports, council member reports. Mr. Deputy Mayor, do you have anything to bring us up to speed on?
County, I brought up, Councillor Steffler brought up about address problems in Seaforth at our last meeting, and I brought it up the next morning, Councillor Steffler, and they said that they would get the 3 Silver Creek streets straightened out for EMS people, so they knew where they were going and how to get there. And then I also mentioned to social services about the private group home on Wilson Street, and they said they were looking into it and they would contact our CAO or our clerk about it. So I don't know if that's been followed up with or not, but and then there's still a lot of development going on in Huron County. It's amazing how many subdivisions are still being developed, even with the interest rates going up and et cetera, et cetera. Still amazes me.
Yeah, that's true. Any questions for the Deputy Mayor? Okay, seeing none. Next, we have any other boards, committees, meetings, or seminars that anybody wanted to enlighten us on? I guess the only thing that I should pass on, and I didn't bring my notes with me tonight. When I was down at AMO, it was really interesting. There was homelessness is still a major topic of what's going on. What really surprised me was there was the city of Ottawa, between themselves, and I do believe they hired another firm to work with their staff. And what they seem to have come to realize, it's not actually a shortage of housing as much as it's a shortage of rental units. The number of houses out there that are for sale, although they are turning over, and there's new houses being built, but it's not that there's a massive shortage of the houses themselves. The problem seems to be more in the actual rental units. And I found this quite surprising, but the city of Ottawa said 2-bedroom apartments range anywhere from $800 a month to $2,000 a month, depending on where they are in the city and whether it's considered more a high end or not. I couldn't believe that you get into the city of Ottawa and can rent a 2-bedroom apartment for $800. I'm pretty sure I don't know of any place in Huron County you could rent a 2-bedroom apartment for $800 a month. But they had some, and I don't have all the details in front of me, but I think they were talking about over a single year and their assistance that they're doing to try and alleviate the homeless problem. I think they said there was something like a $67 million shortfall for a single year in trying to address these issues. And that was even after getting a bunch of money, both from the federal and the provincial government, and money that the city had put in. And what the city had put in was in the millions of dollars also. So it's a drastic problem. Now, for anybody that's ever gone to the AMO conference in Ottawa, unfortunately, the amount of homeless people that you see in that Byward Market area, which certainly I understand why they go there, because that's where the tourists are and that's where it's easy to panhandle. But it's amazing the number of people that you see on the street. And there's no doubt it's a significant problem. The electrical grid going forward was also what I thought to be quite an amazing concern. They are projecting by the year 2025 that 20% of all electricity will actually be used at that time for charging electric vehicles. To me, that sounded like an outrageous amount. And they had some interesting analogies. One of them was that, or what they explained was that whether it's Hydro One or any other electricity corporation, that when a new area is being developed, what they do is they calculate the longest day of the year and the hottest day of the year, and they figure out that what the maximum load is going to be at that time frame, because of air conditioning being usually one of the biggest draws, because it's on in basically every household that there is. And so they figure out how big the hydro lines have to be, and then they'll build it 15% bigger. What was really surprising is they said, when you average it out over the course of the year, that the city of Toronto and cities like New York City are actually using less than 10% of what the grid can handle, just so that they've got those capacities for those really hot, long summer days. So the amount of money they spend, and they said that's like equating that the only way you would ever build a road is if you did it for Thanksgiving, so that you could never have a traffic jam. So instead of having 4-lane highways go through Toronto, you'd have 30-lane highways. And of course, we know that it just wouldn't make any sense to spend that kind of money on infrastructure. But they said people will accept traffic jams, they will not accept burnouts. And that I fully appreciate and understand. So there's no doubt that there's some major concerns going forward, that if 20% of the grid usage, and there's a lot of companies trying to figure out how to equalize this system out. There was a lot of discussions about it, but I don't think there's any easy answers. But it doesn't sound like they've got a lot of time to get to the bottom of this to solve some of these problems. It was a good conference. It was actually nice to be back in person again. So it was good. Bob, I didn't know if there was any other session that you that sparked your interest.
Yeah, I concur with you about the homeless. Sandy mentioned when she was out and about that it was triple or quadruple what it was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
On the street, there was, yeah, she was amazed. And the IESO, they kind of put the fear in me that there might not be enough hydro around in 3 or 4 years, the way they were talking, unless they come up with some very creative ways to produce and store. Unsettling.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. It's in London next year for all those who are interested.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Chartrand.
Yeah, with mandates and companies like Ford, Chrysler, and GM, where they're predicting they're going to be building 100% electric vehicles by 2030. I guess the energy group better come up with their fixes in a hurry, because that's not too far away.
No, that's true. Yeah. 8 years is not a long time in the scheme of things.
Take them 7 to decide, probably. Anyway, but stay tuned.
Are there any requests by members at this time? Councillor Chartrand.
Yeah, through you to Brad, because since Barry's not here right now, Deputy Mayor reported a couple months ago about our electric cars charging stations. Where are we at with that? They were supposed to come to town, visit the sites, meet with Barry, and if I'm not mistaken, all done and in place by the end of this year. I've had a number of people ask me who have electric vehicles about the charging stations.
Okay, go ahead, Brad.
Yeah, I think it was our last meeting. We did approve the contract for Charge Crew, I think Charger Crew, to do the installation. And so they're to be installed by, I think the deadline's the end of November of this year. So
okay, because I know
they've met with our staff in terms of locations. We've truthed all the locations. There's a little bit of work that Festival Hydro has to do with the one up in Brussels. But other than that, everything's kind of laid out and set to go. So
okay,
Charger Crew just has to do their work.
I know Barry and I did a lot of proactive planning when they did the parking lot behind Town Hall, to ensure that all the conduit pipe and everything was there in preparation for whenever that day is going to come. So we do have 3 or 4 residents in town that do have electric vehicles, and they are inquiring about it again. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Mr. CAO, for mentioning Festival Hydro. I do want to mention one other thing that I found fascinating when I was at AMO. So as the deputy mayor says, we're not sure where everybody's or how everyone's going to solve some of these problems in the future, but apparently the city of Stratford and Festival Hydro, there is a facility that they've already put up, and it's battery bank after battery bank. And I forget how many, and I think it's in the megawatts of storage that they have. But the reason the city invested in this is now they're trying to get, I think they said it was like insurance companies, high-tech companies like programming and stuff like that, to move to Stratford, because what they're trying to do is guarantee that because they've got this storage, that they're not going to have these burnout problems that other places might have in the future. So it's maybe a little bit of a gamble on their part, but Stratford's always had a pretty good name for being on the front end of technology and stuff moving forward. So this may be the way of the future, and it'd be interesting to see how that works out for them in a few years. Are there any notice of motions at this time? Seeing none. Any announcements by members of council? Councillor Ron had already mentioned earlier that the Brussels Fall Fair is coming up, and so everybody's certainly welcome to attend that, and that's always a good time there at the Fall Fair in Brussels.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, the Seaforth Fall Fair is the weekend of that week as well.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much for that, Bob.
Parade on a Saturday, et cetera.
Yeah, Bob, you're helping me out there with my reminder. So unfortunately, I have to leave. I think it's on, let me just verify here. I have to actually leave on the 16th for Colorado. So I won't be able to attend the parade. Would you be willing to attend the parade?
Yeah, no problem. If I don't have to walk, if somebody arranges, I wouldn't mind walking, but if somebody could arrange a ride, that'd be nice.
Yeah, so I know that in the past, the parade normally starts at the Optimus Park and then just goes up to the Agriplex. There's always been a vehicle provided for me. I know Councillor McGrath, he didn't want to drive, but he certainly left his vehicle out one year. Oh, Councillor Wilby, do you have information on this?
No, but I could take Bob in our convertible if he wants.
Sure.
That sounds great. That would really be appreciated. And Bob, I do have the stickers that say Huron East, the magnets for the doors.
Yep.
So I will get those dropped off at the town hall this week, so they are available, so that either Councillor Wilby or whoever could stop in and pick them up. So I'll let Gloria and you work out the details of how you're going to get together for the parade. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Gloria.
You're welcome.
We are down to information items. Is there anything that you wanted to point out, Mr. CAO? Oh, you're still muted there, Brad.
There we go. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Good. Okay. I don't think so. I think this is all general information. I think the only thing to note is there's the two, the Huron East Seaforth Community Development Trust minutes and the Vanastra Recreation Center Daycare Committee minutes. The rest of them were just sort of general information items for council.
All right. Thank you. 15.1, discussion about return to in-person meetings. Where do we want to start this discussion off, or who would like to make any comments about this at this point? Councillor Chartrand.
Yeah, my only comment is that I believe that we should go back to total in-person meetings. All other committees that I'm on, Sabo Conservation, whatever, we're all back to 100%. And I know in the past, Mr. Mayor, you said, well, what about the winter months? Well, in my 8 years of being on council, I can think of maybe 2 or 3 times where the weather might have prohibited somebody from the north, but I think it's time to get back into in-person. It's a whole different attitude of a meeting when you can see people in person, see the audience in person, listen to the delegations in person. I think we're beyond the COVID time now.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
I would concur with Councillor Chartrand, Mr. Mayor, and also if there is a weather issue for Gray and Brussels, or any of us for that matter, it could be a hybrid meeting.
Yep.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just want to also go along with that. I think we should be back in person, but I think that option should be available, especially in the winter months or storm-related weather, because that can happen a lot. And trust me, the weather changes a lot from the front door of Seaforth to Walton, and then from there on. So it's Councillor Deal and myself, we chase each other home some nights just making paths. So anyway, so as long as that option is available, I'm good with that.
Yeah, Councillor Chartrand.
That option, like for example, I'll utilize the Asabo Conservation. They still have that option of a hybrid system where if a councillor can't make it because of a conflict of another meeting or whatever, that option's still there for that hybrid. So if we can still have that option for bad weather, or if somebody's not feeling well and still wants to come into the meeting from home, the hybrid system is a great way to do it.
Okay, I'm going to ask the question just because I know for the county to have hybrid meetings, there was quite a cost for the type of equipment it would take. And I know when we first started Zoom meetings, having multiple people in one room actually made it not work very well. So I don't have any problem that we go back to in person. I just need staff to respond about if there's a reason to have a Zoom meeting, should we all be on Zoom, or do we have the equipment needed to do a hybrid?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think maybe certainly our council chambers isn't well equipped. Now, I kind of like it to be sort of the standard that if we're going to have an in-person meeting, that everybody comes to the meeting, save for extenuating circumstances. And Councillor Chartrand's made a good point if someone's not well, in terms of, contagious and doesn't want to, infect the rest of council. That makes sense. Or if there's inclement weather for whatever reason. I think that's probably the only piece that I just wouldn't want it be done sort of piecemeal where someone just says, well, I don't really feel like driving in, so I'm just going to do it, via Zoom. I think that's the only piece that worries me a little bit because we're not well set up. I'll be honest. I think we can probably, I think I'm going to be recommending as part of our 2023 budget that we do some audio visual upgrades to the council chambers to be able to allow us to facilitate a hybrid meeting better. But yeah, right now we're not well set up for it, although we can make it work in a need be basis.
Okay.
Does that answer the question for everybody?
Yeah, no, I think it does. So it would almost be beneficial if for one meeting we could try and have someone, even if we just had someone next door, so that if it didn't work, they could still come into the meeting, but we could try and test to see if the hybrid system would actually work. But all right, it sounds like council is, unless I hear any objections, it sounds like council would like to put a motion forward that we do return to in person. Is there anybody that is opposed to that idea at this point? Okay,
I'd make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so
I'll second it.
Moved by the deputy mayor, second by Councillor Chartrand, that council would like to return to in-person meetings. And since the next one was going to be in person anyways, then I guess we would just call it as of the end of September. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Any final comments or questions? Councillor Chartrand.
I would just suggest through you to Brad, contact the computer genius over at the Asabo Conservation, because it's one camera that they have in there, and on the big TV screen we can see everybody like we see here right now, and it's pretty slick, and it wasn't a huge investment that we spent to do it. So why reinvent the wheel? If it works, contact them and they might be able to share some technology secrets with you.
Okay.
I did reach, just so you know, Councillor Chartrand, I did reach out to them as well to get that information.
Good. Thank you.
Councillor Deal.
Just to reiterate that, yes, the weather can be completely different from between here and Seaforth. And yeah, you might not have a problem getting home, but we certainly have before. And I'd like that option to be there on the table for those nights in particular.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
All right. All those in favor of the motion? And motion carries. Thank you. We are down to bylaws. Can I get a mover and a seconder to introduce?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Oh, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I had one comment about our candidates nights.
Yes.
Going forward, since 4 of the 6 contests were acclaimed, I don't know if people are really happy with everything we're doing or they aren't interested. So I wondered if for the people involved, yourself and your competitor and Gray, if we could combine Gray and Brussels and combine McKillop and Seaforth and have Tucker Smith on it its own, and and just have 3 candidates nights and cut down the work for the staff and for yourself and the other ones who have competition.
All right, I'm going to look for feedback from council here. I guess, and I understand the rationale of the request. My only concern is that if you have it in either Brussels or gray, and I would suggest if you're only going to do one, then it should be in gray because that's where there's an actual election. But in fairness, Brussels always has a really good turnout to the all candidates meeting. So I understand the point that you're making. I don't disagree with it, other than the fact that I'm not sure that it's being fair to the members of the public that do like to attend them and don't want to have to drive to a neighboring ward to do so. Councillor Chartrand, did you have your hand up there?
Yeah, I've been asking the question too around, and I do think you're spot on there. Each ward would like the opportunity to stay within their own ward and talk to, the two mayors that are running. To have to drive somewhere else, I understand what the deputy mayor is saying, that it is a cost savings, it is less staff time, but unfortunately, I think each ward wants to hear, especially the mayor's talk, right?
Yeah, I agree. I appreciate the idea for cost savings, Mr. Deputy Mayor, but I think this is one of those times that it's the ratepayers that are paying the bill, and I think we should be going to them more than having them come to us. So,
okay.
All
Good
right.
input, thank you.
Okay. Did I get a mover and a seconder already, Jessica, to introduce?
No, you haven't. And if I can just interrupt you and go back to the information items to get a motion for the 2 sets of minutes for the Community Development Trust and the Vanastra Rec Center. I think we just missed those with the information pieces.
Okay, sorry about that.
Thank you.
Okay, so can I get a mover and a seconder, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Chartrand, that Huron East Council received the following board and committee meeting minutes as submitted, and that is the Huron East Seaforth Community Development Trust from July 7th of 2022, and the Vanastra Recreation Center Daycare Committee, August 29th of 2022. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. So mover and a seconder for the bylaws. Councillor McClellan and Councillor Morrison, that be it hereby resolved that leave be given to introduce bylaws 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, and 75 for 2022. Bylaw 68, a bylaw to prescribe standards for the maintenance and occupancy of property in the municipality of Huron East, and repeals bylaws 39 of 2001 and 4 of 2017. Bylaw 69, a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw on blocks 334, I think it's supposed to be 34, 35, and 44, Plan 596 Brussels Ward. Bylaw 70, a bylaw to exempt certain lands from part lot control 787 Sports Drive, Brussels. And bylaw 71, a bylaw to appoint municipal investigators. Bylaw 72, a bylaw to authorize the execution of a lease agreement with the Brussels Community Bible Chapel. Bylaw 73, a bylaw to temporarily stop up and close portions of roads and intersections in Brussels for the Brussels Fall Fair. Bylaw 74, a bylaw to authorize the Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement for funding from Reconnect Ontario 2022. And bylaw 75, confirm council proceedings. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Can I get a mover and a seconder for bylaw 68? Councillor Steffler, Councillor Wilby, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 68, a bylaw to prescribe standards for the maintenance and occupancy of property in the municipality of Huron East, and repeal bylaw 39 of 2001 and bylaw 4 of 2017, be given final readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. Mover and a seconder for 69. Councillor Morrison and Councillor On, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 69, a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw on blocks 34, 35, and 44, Plan 596, Brussels Ward, be given first, second, third, and final readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 70. Councillor Deal, Councillor McClellan, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 70, a bylaw to exempt certain lands from part lot control 787 Sports Drive, Brussels, be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. Bylaw 71. Councillor Deal and Councillor Chartrand, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 71, a bylaw to appoint municipal investigators, be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries. Bylaw 72, mover and a seconder. Councillor Wilby, Councillor McClellan, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 72, a bylaw to authorize the execution of a lease agreement with the Brussels Community Bible Chapel, be given first, second, third, and final reading, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. Sorry, I have one question. When I was reading through this, I don't have any problem with the fee. It's not a huge amount, but it's nice that someone's renting some of the facility. Is there any concern about during the construction period?
There isn't a concern. That area that they actually occupy isn't going to be disturbed or interrupted by the actual construction, and the contractor is required to keep sort of an access point open to the building throughout the duration of the contract.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. All those in favor of the motion? And motion carries. Thank you. Mover and a seconder for 73. Councillor Morrison, Councillor Deal, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 73, a bylaw to temporarily stop up and close portions of roads and intersections in Brussels for the Brussels Fall Fair, be given first, second, third, and final reading, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. And mover and a seconder for number 74. Deputy Mayor and Councillor McClellan, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 74, a bylaw to authorize an Ontario Transfer Payment Agreement funding from Reconnect Ontario 2022 be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. And Jessica, it's got the confirmatory bylaw here, but should I be holding that off until after the closed?
I moved it up only because after close, the meeting would be adjourned. There's no motions associated with closed session, so we can leave it after closed if you want, or it can be done here. And then just for web stream purposes, that closes off the meeting as well before we go into close.
Okay, all right, thank you. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 75. Councillor Chartrand, Councillor Deal, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 75, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, be given first, second, third, and final reading, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Can I get a mover and a seconder to go into closed session? Councillor Deal, Councillor On, that council is going into closed session to receive an update on potential acquisition of land and to conduct the CAO performance evaluation. And the motion that council of the municipality of Huron East pursuant to section 239 paragraph 2 of the Municipal Act adjourn the regular meeting of council at 8:25 p.m. to go into closed session to discuss the following: 18.1 adoption of August 9, 2022 closed session of council meeting minutes, 18.2 is section 239, paragraph 2, subsection C, proposed or pending acquisition of land. And 18.3 is paragraph 239 or 239, paragraph 2, subsection B, personal matters about identifiable individuals regarding the CAO performance evaluation and that the clerk, Jessica Rudy, for items 8 remain for items 18.1 and 18.2 only, and that the CAO, Brad McRoberts, remain in closed session. All those in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. So now I need the
If you just